Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today is Q&A Tuesday. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue, I'm a medical coder. Every week I take some of the questions that have been submitted by viewer comments or from emails or through Instagram, and I roll it all into one episode to bring you guys the #1 question and answer show about medical coding, airing on Tuesday. If you would like to have your question submitted for a future episode of Q&A Tuesday, I hope that you'll comment below or send me an email. Thank you to everybody who submitted their question, and let's get started. All right, first question. Is the exam for AHIMA easier than AAPC, or are they about the same? So AHIMA, if you don't know, is the American Health Information Management Association. AAPC is for the American Academy of Professional Coders. Both of these are the major medical coding association powerhouses. When it comes to, is there an easier exam, AHIMA or AAPC? No, absolutely not. They are both difficult, okay? So no, there is not one that is easier than the other. When it comes to these exams, they're designed to be very difficult because they need to measure the knowledge base of the potential future coder. So that is why these exams are tough. You can find out what is on the exams, like what are they testing the areas. On either website, they do have information about their testing, and they also have the pass-fail rates for first-time test takers on the AHIMA website for AHIMA credentials. So if you're interested in learning about that, please be sure to go to the website. All right, next question. I found that most doctors code themselves. Do they need billing more than coding? Absolutely not. They need billers and coders equally. They really need strong billers, and they really need strong medical coders because of the simple fact that we are their last line of defense before it gets sent out, right? And with coders need to assist the provider to make sure that everything is absolutely there. If there's things that are missing, then a query needs to be submitted so that way that there's clarification. And with billers, the billers need to make sure that all of the documentation and everything is being submitted properly and appropriately. So with that, I mean, yes, the providers do select their own codes, but providers are not designed to be medical coders. That is why we have jobs, because that's what we do. We have their back that way. It's like, they're the quarterback and, we're just defending them. So that is what we do, as medical coders, to put it, that way. But even though they select their codes doesn't mean that they're correct. And a lot of people, a lot of brand new medical coders will do this too. They'll think, oh, well, the provider is selecting it, so they just must need a biller. But the provider is selecting based on what they see and based on what they've heard from their colleagues. They haven't been trained in the rules. A lot of them haven't, okay? Some have, but a lot of them haven't. They haven't been trained in the rules. They haven't been trained in the guidelines and things like that. And these things update every year. So that's the thing. And you have to make sure that you're on top of these rules and that you know and understand. So having a good, strong medical coder and a good, strong biller will be very beneficial for the provider. Okay, next question. I was wondering, with the online course, I would pay $3,000. Does this mean I will take the courses by myself? Yes, when you are taking an online course, you are taking it by yourself. They may have some courses that are like live and where you're talking with the instructor or whatever, and they may not. So it just depends. I don't know what program this viewer was talking about in particular, but typically when you are doing an online program, it is going to be self-paced and you are going to be on your own. Okay. Next question. I'm finishing up medical billing and coding online course. When I finish, do I have to take the CPC exam in order to get a job? If you are wanting to sit for the CPC credential, of course. There are some employers that will say that you have to have your credential within 6 months if you haven't taken your exam yet. Okay, but those are very few and far in between. So don't get into the world thinking that you can get a job and not take your certification, because most employers are going to be looking for credentials. And keep in mind that if you do start out that way with no credential and they say, well, we'll give you 6 months, we'll give you a year to get your credential, you may not start out as high on the pay scale. So if that is of concern to you, don't be alarmed if that's the case, because you don't have your credential yet. Okay, so it's very important to have it. And that is why, there has to be a measure of understanding of what's happening. That's why these medical coding credential exams are so important. So that is something to keep in mind, that yes, while they do have those, because they'll say, well, we accept education, but you have to be credentialed within a certain amount of time, and you have to be able to get that credential within that amount of time. So, it's entirely up to you if you want to take that gamble to start, but I'm just saying. Next question. Hi, Blue. BLEU, guys. Remember, BLEU. This one spelled BLUE. I have zero computer skills, honestly. I just use an iPad and my iPhone, and I can't tell you the last time I was on a computer. So with that being said, do you think medical billing and coding would be good for me? I think if you can operate an iPhone and an iPad, you can operate a basic computer system. And the encoders are trainable. I mean, it's not that difficult. It's not hard to learn it. The encoders are very straightforward. A lot of the computer software systems are very straightforward. And if you're really concerned that you haven't been around working with computers in a while, go on YouTube and watch the tutorial videos about working with computers. But again, I think that if you can operate an iPhone and an iPad, you can operate a computer. Okay. Next question. Hi, Blue. Could you please give me tips on how to prepare myself for the final exam of anatomy and physiology, please? I'm nervous. So when it comes to your anatomy and pathophysiology, you have to just go with the flow when it comes to those types of things. Don't get so caught up in the details or start overthinking when it comes to learning about the body, because you have to know at least the broad strokes, okay? The general area of bones and things like that. That's what you have to do, or the muscles or the organs and things like that. They just want to make sure that you have a broad understanding of where basic things are. So when you're doing that, you have to work with flashcards. You have to work with watching videos. On my Patreon channel, and Patreon, if you don't know, is a site a lot like YouTube, except that you pay to sponsor the creator, which would be me in this case. And I do exercises about anatomy and medical terminology. I do crossword puzzles, I do word searches, and that is what I do on my channel there. And you would have access to it if you pledged on my channel. So if you're interested in that, I will leave that link in the description box below for my Patreon channel. But there's lots and lots of free resources out there, guys, to help you study for pathophysiology and anatomy. It's something that you're going to learn more in time, but at least in the beginning, if you have the broad strokes and you have the basic general understanding, you're going to be fine. This is not something to overthink, okay? That's the last thing you want to do when it comes to anatomy, okay, and pathophysiology. All right, next question. Can you just be a medical billing specialist without the coding aspect? You don't even have to be certified to be a medical biller. You don't even have to have anything to do with the coding. It helps for medical billers to understand medical coding, because a lot of times, there's things that get sent back to the coders because the billers are thinking that it's incorrect, when actually it is actually correct if they would understand the coding rules. So it is important to know as much as you can about the coding side, but you don't even have to be certified to be a medical biller. So if you're interested in doing just medical billing, then just apply for medical billing, because oftentimes they will train you. Sometimes they will say, we want you to have 1 year experience or 2 years of experience. And sometimes if you've had other clerical experience, or you've been in the medical arena, maybe you were a secretary before and now you want to transition over to just the billing, well, then you'd have stuff to put on your resume. So I would do that. If that's what you want to do, that's totally fine, Next question. Did you ever feel discouraged while in medical coding school or at work? I mean, of course, I'm like anybody else. You know, there's times when things get frustrating for me, even when I was in school and with work. I do recall actually being put in the early years, being put in physical therapy. And physical therapy, for some reason, was throwing me because of the way that things was documented. And so I was getting very frustrated with it. And I remember being frustrated with it because it wasn't very clear. And there was a huge disconnect between the coding department and the physical therapy department. And so at that time, that was part of the struggle as well. So yes, that was part of how I felt discouraged. Sometimes when I think that I know the parts of the disease process, and then I get into a part that is very unclear, and it's the waters start to get muddy, that I'm like, oh, you know. So then I feel discouraged, of course. But then I start to do my research, and doing my research and taking the time to learn more has really helped me to kind of squash those feelings of discouragement. And mostly where any kind of feelings of discouragement, they lie on the side of, you know, the knowledge-based part. Anything else, I mean, I can handle, like the coding and stuff like that. But when it comes to the knowledge base, it's just like sometimes I wish I could just soak in all of this information. And that would make it so much easier. But there's only so much you can do and so much you can read. And some of it just comes with time. So, I mean, that's what I've learned in all my years as a medical coder. And I've been a medical coder for over 10 years. But my experiences are going to be different from your experiences. So if you have this question and you want to know specifically, you know, did I ever feel discouraged? Of course, I'm like everybody else, you know. Yes, I'm confident in my abilities now. Was I always like this out of the gate? No. I mean, I would be lying if I told you that, you know. But back then, I thought that medical coding was a job. You know, oh, I have a good job. It's not a job, it's a career. There's a difference. You know, when you start devoting your life and your time to your profession, it becomes a career. And, you know, sometimes people will say, well, you know, I just want a job and then I want to be able to come home and spend time with my family. That's great, you know, if you want to do that. But when it comes to your career field, you're going to be with for however long, 20 plus years, 30 years, you know, until you retire. You know, some is going to be for 40 years. It just depends. At what point in your life you get into it. You have to enjoy what you do. For me, medical coding has completely turned into a passion for me. It has. I mean, it's sparked in 2014. You know, but like I said, I've been in this field for over 10 years. So it didn't happen right away. It just happened one day, and it just sort of started to evolve in this 1 year of time. And by the time I knew it, I was like, wow, now I get it. And so now I have this passion for it. And that's why I share it with you guys. I share the things that I've been through so that way you guys can have some kind of knowledge about these things that can potentially happen. But everybody's experience is different, and everybody takes discouragement differently as well. It was discouraging in the beginning when I was having to fight for a job and being told no, and then almost getting it and then not getting it. And that was very discouraging. But it's something that you have to put in your head and you have to put in your mind mentally that you want to succeed. You want to be able to get a position in medical coding or whatever position you want to get into, and really go for it, because the only one that can stop you literally is yourself. And I've seen so much talent be wasted because people fall into their discouragement and they just sort of let it take over. And, oh yeah, you know, I can't do it. And, well, why can't you? I always tell people, why can't you do something? well, I just can't. And they never can give me a legitimate answer when I ask that question back to them. Well, why can't you? Well, it's not that it's an excuse, like they're making excuses, but it's that narrative that they have, that, oh, well, maybe I can't do it. Well, why are all the reasons why I can't? And these are all the reasons why I can't. Well, why can't you list all the reasons why you can, so that you can move forward with doing what it is that you want to do? So many people have looked at this field and said, I'd really like to do that. I want to be able to read. I want to be able to look at this interesting documentation and really get into a career field that I know I'm going to enjoy. Well, then why don't you do it? Well, I don't know. I'm scared, or I've got kids, or, well, I always say this too. Your kids are going to watch everything that you do. And if you are just willing to give up so easily on something that you want to do, that would be beneficial for your family, by the way, and you just give it up so easily, then they're going to know that that's okay. But you want to set a good example. And so putting your desires to do something that would be better and beneficial for you and your family, and the fact that you would go for it, is something that you should really think about, and embrace it. Is it going to be scary? Is it going to be hard? Of course. But everything that is good is something you're going to have to work for. And there's going to be those times when you're not going to be so sure, and you're going to be kind of scared, and you're not going to be like, oh, what do I do? Am I doing the right thing? This is difficult. It is difficult, but it's going to take time for you to learn. It's not something you're going to learn overnight. And it sure as heck isn't something you're going to learn in just a few weeks' time. This thing takes months to learn, years to learn. And think about this. Doctors get like 10 years of schooling. We get like bare minimum 9 months, 18 months, 12 months, a year to learn. If you're going through a legitimate process, right? And a legitimate process that I think would be like at a minimum 9 months, 12 months, 18 months. Because that's going to give you sufficient enough time to learn your anatomy, physiology, medical terminology, and everything else that you need to learn. HIPAA, and about the OIG, and all of those things. And then you got to learn your coding. So there's all of those components to learn, and you have to have time to be able to learn those. That's just my bit on that one. I know I went a little bit long on that one, but that was a big open-ended question, honestly. And the next one is, hi, Blue. Thank you so much for this info. It is so helpful. I'm a new biller to a podiatry company. Which books do you recommend besides the Optum 360 Podiatry Coding Companion? Thank you. When I asked the viewer, had she worked with the Coding Companion, she said no. Okay, so here's the thing. These resources that I recommend is because I have used them personally. I am a podiatry coder as well as an orthopedics coder. That is my primary clinic right now. That is what I do. I have done many other clinics, too many to list right now. Let's just stay focused. But when I recommend a tool like the Coding Companion is amazing. And then the fact that people don't even know about it is like, I want to shout it from the rooftop sometimes. This book is a series of books, and they're published or put out by Optum 360 Coding, right? And they're broken down by specialty. They have all of the different procedures for that different specialty, right? And then they have the diagnoses that go with that particular procedure code. They talk about the RVUs. They talk about the words you need to look out for, or the definition of the procedure, or the definition of other words. It is a very helpful book. So when I recommend it, at least check it out, because there's really, if I say something like that, it's because I know that is a worthy resource, and it can really help you. If you're looking for something else, I don't know. You'd have to be more specific about what you're specifically looking for, because other than that, it's like, you know. But I like it. I think it's a great book. It has helped me. It has gotten me out of a jam many times with my providers and in an audit when I was being audited by my supervisor. So, I mean, that's a worthy resource to use when you are trying to support your argument. If you are being audited, or if you are having to present information to a provider who doesn't quite understand, you have a book to show them. Okay, so that's my advice on that one. And then, oh yeah, okay, well, I think I can do a couple more. Well, how likely would it be for me to get a remote coding job straight after completing and testing for a medical coding exam? So it is difficult. It is a challenge in the beginning to get a medical coding position, let alone a remote one. I've been telling people that the pandemic has changed the landscape of the hiring process for brand new medical coders. If you're brand new, apply at places you have to physically go, because 9 times out of 10 right now, because of the pandemic, they're going to send you home. So if you make a good enough impression and they hire you, they may keep you at the facility for a couple of weeks to get you training and trained up on their systems and then send you home. Or they may just send you home and then they train you virtually. So it just depends on the facility. But as far as like right away, no. Every medical coder runs into the challenge of finding their first job. I did a show a few days ago about how to find your first job in 2021. And I will leave that link in the description box below. And it was very insightful, because I did poll other coders and ask them, how did they get their first job? And so there's a lot of endurance during this part where you're having to look for a job, because it's not easy and it's going to be a lot of rejection in the beginning. But once you stay with it, somebody will eventually let you in. But there's a lot of things that go into making yourself look good for these positions. So that's my advice on that one. And the last question. What can I put on my resume to stand out when I am applying for jobs? So you need to make sure that your resume is customized for every position that you're applying for. Some positions are going to ask you to be more specific in certain areas, or whatever the case may be, depending on the position. All right. So you want to make sure that you're really looking at the job posting. Don't just blanket a bunch of positions and just give them all the same resume that doesn't look like there was a lot of thought put into it. Okay, you have to be able to highlight any transferable skills that you have. So that's very important. I do resume reviews if you guys are interested. I will leave my rates in the description box below. But we basically review your resume together, and we look for ways to dress it up. Things that we can highlight your skills in a more attractive way for employers. So again, if you're interested in that, it'll be in the description box below. But take the time to be very specific about the position that you're trying to get, okay? And do that, because trying to blanket and do a bunch of those is not going to help you, okay? It's only going to make your resume be not looked at. Okay? You have to make it unique, and you have to make it specific. And that's my advice. I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope that you will submit your questions if you have any. And I will see y'all on the next video. Bye.